Hello, in this video I will give you my opinion on the best destroyers for solo PvP in 2026. Overall, destroyers are more straightforward than frigates. You have fewer options, fewer archetypes, and quite often fights between destroyers come down to position and when HP and DPS numbers. But I hope I will be able to give some good suggestions for the current meta nevertheless. So this is the engagement map. I combined Tech 1 destroyers and Navy destroyers together. The engagement map is for 2025 from January to December. I omitted all advanced destroyers and pirate destroyers. I feel like the engagement profile for them is just not that good. So I feel like there is no point even discussing them. They will be limited to small advanced complexes and above. And I feel like you're just missing out on too big of a part of faction warfare ecosystem. You will very often see some potential targets that sit in small navy complex. So I feel like you kind of need to be able to enter navy complexes in a destroyer. So let's start with Tick 1 destroyers, and for Tick 1 destroyers, my recommendation would be Thrasher. In general, let's discuss how metagame looks in Tick 1 destroyers. So the biggest problem for this class is Navy destroyers. Navy destroyers, as you can see, are very, very, very popular. And since you are limited to small complexes in a Tick 1 destroyer, you will face Navy destroyers all the time. And the problem with destroyer PvP is that since it's a numbers game, it's very difficult to punch up, unlike in frigates. So what it means? It means that if you decide to pick Tick 1 destroyer, you kind of need to pick an anti-frigate destroyer and just maximize your engagement profile against frigates. So you don't really care about fighting navy destroyers, you will mostly avoid them, but you need to be able to cover the majority of frigates that decide to enter and fight you. Dragoon looks very promising in terms of win rates, but the problem with Dragoon is that it has a very polarizing engagement profile, and people just will not fight you in anything cap dependent. So again, your engagement profile will look kind of not that great because people will just avoid you. And among ships that are excellent at killing frigates, specifically, you have Coercer and Thrasher. These two are the best frigate killers, but I think Thrasher is a bit more flexible than Coercer. Coercer is kind of a one-trick pony. With Thrasher, you have a choice between multiple good fits. So let's look at fits next. Okay, so I will show you two fits for Thrasher that I think work fine in the current meta. The first one is the debugs Thrasher. It used to be a bit better back when Navy destroyers were not in the game, because the bigger portion of your engagement profile was in frigates. And essentially, this is a frigate killer. So you sit in a complex, when someone comes, you apply double webs, and you use micro warp drive to keep up. And you apply just overwhelming damage. It's practically impossible to mitigate this damage without some very specialized feats, because Thrasher has bonus to tracking and you also have double webs. So neither in close range nor in long range you can really mitigate that well, unless you bring something very specialized. And another very strong trait of this ship compared to Corsair, for example, is that you have Alpha Strike. And it's very uncomfortable to fight against Alpha Strike destroyers in a frigate. Because it's just very difficult to plan what is going to happen next when the wall is like this land on you. You generally just have to leave immediately. The second feat is more straightforward. It's a Tenement kiting thrasher, web kiting thrasher essentially. So with this feat, the idea is you let your opponents chase you, ideally, and you apply your DPS almost fully again, because your Tenement helps you to straighten up the transversal. And again, you have a web and you have a tracking bonus, so your application is amazing in this thing. And when your opponents realize that they cannot win the fight, they find it very difficult to leave because you have a warp disruptor and you have a web on top of it. So for example, think of a situation when you are fighting a comet and the comet is like 5 kilometers away from you and the comet decides, okay, I need to bail. Well, it needs to burn 13 kilometers to escape a web, which will take time. And when it needs to burn 28 kilometers to escape warp disruptor. And all of this time, this comet will take damage because you have long range ammo or long range guns. So again, this is a feat that's very tricky to fight against. You need to have a very good feel on when you need to leave a fight, because leaving the fight against an man web kiting feats take a long time. So you will get a lot of kills because people just won't be able to bail out. So it kind of mitigates the issue with poor control that many destroyers have. Okay, and finally we have Navy destroyers, and for Navy destroyers I will not be original. I will suggest 10-man Rail Catalyst. I think there is really not much else that comes to the same level of cost efficiency and performance. You can get similar performance with Corsair Navy or Thrasher Fleet, but you will not have as wide of an engagement profile as you have with a Navy Catalyst. And Rail Navy Catalyst also plays a bit against the meta, since so many Navy Catalysts are blast defeated, and usually when you enter the complex out of position, people will not be sitting at 0, and it gives you a huge advantage in terms of like the initial 30 seconds of a fight. Okay, and here is the feat. So you have two variations. One is 125 millimeter and the other is 150 millimeter railguns. The feats are very similar. Railguns in high slots, medium slots is standard web kiting stuff for destroyers, and low slots, again, very standard damage control, damage module, ancillary rep, and bulkheads for your tank. 150 is essentially the same, you just replace railguns with 150 millimeter caliber. You don't need Tech 2 guns because you are never going to use Spike, so you use Metaphor for fitting. The general idea for these feats is the same as for web kiting thrasher that we just looked at. You try to fight at the edge of web range with close range ammo, and if you start getting kited when you switch to long range ammo, and essentially you hope that you win the DPS race at this range. And Generally, Catalyst Navy is well positioned to win these DPS races because it has a huge number of hit points, 13,000 plus monthly rep, and the DPS is quite decent as well. You do have pretty good control against destroyers. Web plus 10 AB is good enough, and especially if you are given some leeway in the beginning of a fight, when you are in position or when you are out of position but your opponent does not camp a beacon, is generally enough to establish the desired range. And after that, it just comes down to the numbers game. Okay, I think this is everything I wanted to say about destroyers. I feel that Thrasher and Navy Catalyst would be the best choices currently. I hope you found it useful, and I will see you in the next videos.